So last time we let off Karu, Sakura, and Ino having a celebration, if you would say, that involved many different positions, but in one room. But anyway, let's get started. So, after this experience, this made Karu a lot shy around females that liked him or that were a part of his harem, as you can say. For the reason that usually he was the one to initiate, the thing. But this time, he didn't, and it felt overpowering to him. But he is still cold, or just as arrogant or nice as he is to everyone else. But anyway, so he and his team would go on missions almost every day, but there would be light missions, as like helping people with their groceries or helping someone find a lost cat or something. Just normal D-rank missions. And this would actually make Karu pretty mad, seeing as his potential is being wasted on missions like this. So he would go to the 4th Hokage, Minato, and ask for higher rank missions. And Minato, knowing how strong his son Naruto is, he lets them do C rank missions. But he doesn't know if Karu will be able to handle them. So it does take Karu a little bit more convincing. But he eventually gets the Hokage to cave in. So, while the day before his mission, he went off to go and train with his friends, Marth and Marta. And as he was training with them, Marth would say, and Karu, I'm really sorry about your parents. Karu would sit in silence. Marth would then respond with, "Are you okay, Karu? Karu, are you okay?" And in an instant, he felt a dark, looming presence, and he felt something tighten its grip around his neck. Karu was standing right behind Marth, with his arm wrapped around his neck, and a kunai piercing his rib. Marth would then say, "Karu, what are you doing?" Then Karu would whisper in his ear, "I never told you my parents were dead." He would then stab the kunai into his rib. He was like, "What the heck? Marta told me." Karu would then say, "I didn't tell Marta either." Then Mars, knowing that he has no choice but to fight, he would then yell, "Beast style, Dragon Claw," as he would slash at Karu, but Karu would just catch his fist, and his forearms would be covered in hair, and so would the back of his legs, and his hair would become a lot. It was more, how do I say this? Messy, and his body began to bulk up, and he got hair like he got a bit hairy on his like arms and stuff. This was Karu when he's truly angry. His eyes would then light up a light gold, and his teeth would become sharper, so would his nails. And he would punch Mars through multiple trees. Then he would appear in front of Marth before Marth could even get up, and he would once again wrap his arms around Marth's neck, and he would start squeezing. Marth would try to fight back, but then Karu would punch him on the top of his head, punch him in his rib where he had stabbed him just earlier, and break his leg. Marth with one leg still tries to stand up so he can get out of Karu's grasp. So Karu just breaks his other leg by punching it multiple times in the same spot. Karu would then fall to the ground, landing on his knees while he's on top of Marth, strangling him to death. And he sits there strangling him. Then Marta would appear and start punching Karu, telling him to get off of Mars. But Karu wouldn't let up. He continued to strangle Mars until he was dead, eyes lifeless. He would then stand up and look at Marta and say, "He killed my parents. And I did what I had to do." This would leave Marta shocked, as she didn't know he had done this. And she would then apologize for hitting Karu. And Karu would revert back to normal. And he would let her know that it was okay. And he thought to himself, "That's weird. On the day of their death, I didn't feel a thing. No sadness, no sorrow, no anger. But now, I'm filled with so much hatred. Maybe it's not because my parents are dead or because he killed my parents. Maybe it's because I thought I could trust him. I don't know, but at least I avenged them, and that's what matters." He would then walk around the village, and he would bump into Kurenai, and he would say, "Oh, hey Kurenai sensei," and she would say, "Hello Karu, what are you doing? It's getting pretty late. Shouldn't you be resting up? I heard about your mission tomorrow." He would say, "Yeah, I was just on my way back home. Would you like to come over?" She would say, I have some spare time," as they would walk to Karu's house and they would drink some tea. And he would actually ask Kurenai if she could train him in Genjutsu, but she would have to decline at the moment, seeing as she has to deal with her team. And this would, make Karu feel a little upset, but he would understand this, and he would leave her be. But he couldn't get the thought out of his mind about how pretty Kurenai was. And as he walked her out of the door, he couldn't help it, and he kissed her. And he was expecting to get punched or scolded, but none of that happened. She would just look at him, blushing. She would then go back into his house, and this would make Karu get shy, as he knows what's about to happen. And he instantly regrets every decision he's made so far. So, they do things that involve positions, as known as the reverse of the cow girl. But we're not gonna talk about that. We're gonna time skip past that. And now Karu is with Naruto, Ino, and Sakura, and they're all waiting for the person they're supposed to be escorting. And he finally enters the room, and he's drunk. It looks like he may have had 2 whole bottles, maybe even more. And he's still drinking as he walks in the room. He would then start talking about Naruto's height and saying how he wasn't sure of his abilities. But Naruto would just say, "I can assure you that I will be able to protect you," as he stared dead into Tazana's eyes. And this would make Tazana feel a little bit of respect for the boy. Now, I'm going to time skip to where the Demon Brothers had popped out of the puddles. And when they emerged from these puddles, they killed Kakashi. And then Karu would turn around and kick one in their jaw, fracturing it, and sending them flying into the air. He would then envelop his arm in chakra and ki, and it would glow a bright green. And he would jump up into the air and punch him in his stomach. And as he was sent flying, he then used his mana and made multiple orbs. Sorry, my dog came into my room. He was hungry. But that's besides the fact. So these light green orbs would glow brighter and brighter by the second. And then they would all start to enlarge until they all absorbed into each other, making one massive green ball of light. And then she shot it down at the demon brother, completely obliterating him and his bones. Then Naruto would take care of the other how Sasuke did in the original timeline. And they would continue to walk. And as they continued to walk, mist started to build up around them. And Karu could hear another presence. He could smell them and sense them. He would tell everyone to duck before Kakashi even did. And then a sword would fly above them. And a man would land on top of the sword. He would then introduce himself to be Zabuza Momoichi. And out of nowhere, he and Kakashi began to fight. This fight would go relatively the same, with them exchanging blows, Kakashi copying his jutsu, and then getting trapped. But when they're thinking of a plan to free Kakashi, Karu just blitzes Zabuza, and he runs at him at high speeds. Then Zabuza would use his other hand and try to punch Karu, but Karu would dodge under this, and he would try to sweep Zabuza's legs, but Zabuza would just jump over this. But this would make Karu turn around and deliver a gut punch straight to Zabuza, sending him far back. Then Naruto took this to his advantage and started jumping from tree to tree, trying to catch up to Zabuza before Zabuza landed. But it was late, and Zabuza already landed. But Karu knew what Naruto was trying to do, so he had his back, as he was already fighting with Zabuza. They were going blow for blow, punch for punch. Then Karu would jump back, and green wolf fists would appear around his hands, as he would then start slashing at Zabuza, which Zabuza would block all these slashes with his sword. Then Karu jumped back once. Oh, I didn't even realize this was up there. Karu would jump back once more, as Naruto came flying down with a wind chakra enhanced kick, and when it impacted with Zabuza, not only did it send him flying far away, but the wind ended up making him rotate so fast, where he became dizzy and stunned, and then he hit a tree. This will be Coral's chance, as people say, fire style. Demon Insurgent, as a large skull would appear behind him, and it would be engulfed in flames. It would open its mouth, and a flame spear would appear, and it would be shot at Zabuza. And in a flash, Zabuza disappeared. So he would be questioning where Zabuza had went, and he would look up to see an Anbu. The Anbu would then tell them that they were looking for Zabuza everywhere, and now they finally caught him. And the Anbu would then thank them for what they had done and leave. So after that, they ended up going to Tazuna's house to rest, and everyone, well, by everyone I mean Sakura and Ino, began their chakra training, learning how to walk on trees and water, which both Karu and Naruto already learned how to do. And these two were experts at it. So they were able to give Sakura and Ino some pointers for the water walking, as they got the tree walking down pretty easily. Then Karu would go in the house, go to the bathroom, and change his clothes. And he would change back into this. which would would make everyone question his sanity, I would say. So it's pretty cold here, and instead of wearing what you already had on, which was already pretty revealing and could make you get a sickness, you are now wearing shorts, sandals, with no shorts, with no shirt. Nice. Just marvelous. But he would just shrug this off and go lay down. And when Karu laid down, she could feel two hands on his chest, as it was Ino and Sakura. He already knew what was going to happen, and he would then try to see if he could divert the situation. Well, what are you two doing in here? The girls would just smile at him and say, Kakashi and Naruto and Tazuna all left. They went out to go get something, or do something. I forgot. But you know what this means, right? Actually, I don't. He would say, stuttering over his words. Well, they would say, as they lifted the covers over the three of them. Now, after the 3 hours they were gone, Sakura and Ino both left the room to go clean themselves up, and Karu was passed out on the bed. And once Kakashi and Naruto entered the house, he would then wake up Karu so he could go help with the cooking, which he went down and helped with cooking, seeing as he knows how to cook, and he can cook pretty well. So after he got done with cooking, he ate, and he went out by himself to go, explore. And he ended up falling asleep by some trees. And when he woke up in the morning, he was greeted by a woman. And this woman will start talking to him, asking him about if he has anyone he wants to protect. And he would say, well, there are these two girls I would like to protect. Well, make that 3, actually. They mean a lot to me. She would then say, well, this makes you a very strong warrior. Now keep this in mind every time you're facing a challenge that is hard for you to overcome. As before she would walk away, she would kiss him on the forehead, not being able to hold herself back, as she would walk away waving goodbye. Now, most of you are probably wondering, isn't that a guy though? No, that's not a guy. And yes, this is Haku, but it's not a guy. So Karu would then get up and walk off, meeting up with the rest of his team, and they would do some training. Well, Naruto and Karu would spar. Sorry, I had to say that louder. And Sakura and Ino would still work on their water walking. And after a couple of hours of this, they all went back inside and decided to relax. And Karu went straight up to the room he was staying in and laid down in the bed. And as he started to doze off, he would hear a knock on the window. And he would open it, and it would be the girl that he had seen in the woods. She would then sit on the bed, and they would begin talking for hours. And as Karu started to fall asleep, she would then, once again, kiss him on the forehead and leave. Now, we're going to time skip to when they made it to the bridge. So, at the bridge, they noticed two figures standing at the edge of the bridge. It was Zabuza and the Ambu from the days before. And without a second, both Karu and Kakashi would engage in battle. But Karu would end up fighting Zabuza, and Kakashi would end up fighting Haku. So, Kakashi would pretty much be beating Haku for the most part. But then, Haku whipped out her special technique, the ice mirrors, which gave Kakashi a lot of trouble. And Karu would throw a punch at Zabuza, which Zabuza would block with his sword. Then Karu would build up mana in his fist and punch once more, cracking the blade. And this would anger Zabuza as he would swing his blade at Karu, which Karu dodged. And then he cupped his hands together and launched them forward, sending a wave of mana and ki, snapping the sword into oblivion. He would then stand up in front of Zabuza and say, "There's not much you can do without your sword." As he was then met with a fist to the face, Zabuza would say, "I'm more than just my sword, boy." As he would kick him down, making him roll all the way to the other side of the bridge. He would then run at Karu, and Karu would run at him, and they would clash fists, sending waves of air around the field by just their pure strength. Zabuza would then start to enhance his punches with chakra, and Karu with mana. As he would then... My dog keeps coming into my room. But, and he and Zabuza would start clashing fists. Both of their punches would keep colliding. And then they both had the idea to throw a kick, and both these kicks met each other's faces, sending them both flying far back. Then Karu would dash at Zabuza, and Zabuza would dodge his attack and knee him in the gut. And without a second thought, he would start throwing a flurry of punches and kicks at the boy. And Karu would say, that was cheap. But I'm gonna end you with this next attack. As his fist would become... Well, they would have a green aura around them. And this aura would then take shape as massive werewolf fists. But they were larger than before and any other time he had used it. They were from his shoulders all the way down to the ground. He would then rush at Zabuza, going at faster speeds than ever before. And he would slash at Zabuza, sending him flying to the other side of the bridge. And then, in a blink of an eye, he was already behind Zabuza, and he slapped him up with his arm, and then jumped up and made a fist and slammed them down on Zabuza, knocking him down into the bridge. And he would make the fist go away, thinking he had killed Zabuza. But then out of nowhere, he was then hit with a kunai to the shoulder. And as he fell down, he seen a weakened Zabuza standing up through the smoke. Zabuza would then start throwing an abundance of kunai that all impacted with Karu's stomach and chest. And this would anger Karu, but there wasn't much he could do. Then Zabuza would start pressing his foot on Karu's chest, making Karu scream out in agonizing pain. And Kakashi would try to save Karu, but then he would get hit with one of Haku's spikes, which would knock him to the ground. This would anger Karu as he's making his team crumble apart around him. As he would then get angry, and his mana and ki would burst, with his chakra filling up inside. He would start to grow larger, stronger. His muscles became bigger, and he became furry, with long ears and blue eyes to match, with sharp canines. He would then punch Zabuza off the bridge, tumbling, rolling, and snapping through trees. He would then appear behind him, and he would hold out his fist, and his fist would be engulfed in flames. Then that flare would become a beam, and it would be shot at Zabuza, piercing straight through his chest. And then he began to beat on Zabuza, beating him into a bloody pulp. Then he would return back to the bridge as he seen the girl that had talked to him those nights. Well, that night and that morning. Because Kakashi had broken her mask, and he was about to kill her. And in a flash, he was holding Kakashi's arm and holding the girl in the other arm. He would say, "Kakashi, I can't allow you to kill her." As he would hold her close to him, Kakashi would let the boy be, and he would say, "But if he tries anything funny, you know what I have to do, correct?" Then Karu would nod his head, as he would say, "Let's just get this bridge builder to where he needs to be and return back to the village." So that's exactly what they did. And when they returned back to the village, Haku would then tell him that she wanted to give him a prize for saving her. She would then start to kiss him and lay him down on the bed. Now we're gonna skip past that because we've been over this routine many times. And by many times, I think, we've been over this a couple of times. And let's just say, in the middle of it, Sakura and Ito join in. Yeah. Karu is exhausted after this, and he would hear a knock at his door, so he would get something to cover himself up with, and then he would go to the door and see Kakashi. He would say, "Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? It's way too early for you to be assigning me a mission already." He would say, "No, it's not any mission. It's the shooting exams. It's in 2 weeks, so you better train, because I heard there's going to be some strong shinobi from different villages." Karu would nod his head and return to his bed. Ooh, that was fire, not play. As he would fall asleep. That's where I'm going to end things off here. And, yeah. So, this is Ultimate Kage, out.